Hello, here my theory is queer theory. It's about trying to understand different sexual desires and how cultures defines them. It includes different topics like sexual turns, lesbians, feminism, gender identity and performativity, race and sexuality, gays, past and future, etc. Here my topic is gender identity and performativity. Gender identity and performativity. Judith Butler develops a post-structuralist analysis of gender when she proposes that gender cannot be treated as an essence but must be taken as a performative construct. Let's go through performativity. Performativity is a complex notion that argues that it is in the act of performing that performer is born constructed. To understand it, we should know about Performative Speech Act. Performative speech acts are those where the action is performed in the very act of speaking. Here is example for Performative Speech Act. I hereby promise there is nothing else one needs to do there. Articulating the sentence is the action of promising. That is, the act of promising is in the performative enunciation. I promise. Let's go through gender. Gender. Gender is a series of acts within specific discourse of law, medicine, religion, family, sexuality that a body performs, which is turn identifies her as a woman. One cannot act or acquire an identity outside this system of discourses. Butler argues in a reading of Simone de Beauvoir's famous claim that one is not born but rather becomes a woman. That woman is a process, a becoming rather than a fixed identity. This ongoing process is constituted by discourse. A feminist genealogy writes that identities are the effect of institutions, practices, discourses with multiple and diffused points of origin. She proposes that gender is not a fact or natural, but the effect of discourses that are controlled by power structures. Central to this discourse and performative construction is language. Butler argues that there is no gender identity prior to or outside of language because identity is the effect of discourse. There is an example for identity. College university ID card. Without the ID card, which shows universities descriptions and conditions, constitute the discourse is in which the student lives and acquires an identity that they are not a student in the university. Without an ID card, nobody is allowed for a student in university. They are not said to be a student in a university. The with identity is an more important than the person. Butler works on this same assumption. Gender is discursively constructed within a cultural discourse. Categories of man, woman are those that define one's identity. Butler's argument is that sexuality, likewise, is something constructed out of heterosexuality. It is produced in a discourse of heterosexuality. There are some assumptions of Butlers. Butler's basic assumptions is that identities tend to be seen as solid and unchanged. Identity and the subject she suggests are performative constructs. One arrives at an identity, say male, through the performative act of behaving like a male. It must be mentioned right away that performance and performativity are not the same. Here, Butler argues in gender trouble effectively. Masculine man or feminine woman are signifiers and speech acts that, in the very act of naming, construct these identities. Gender is this act of naming that constructs what it names. With the act of naming, it some identifies some body as a masculine one. There is no gender identity that precedes language. Gender is thus a performativity that constitute identity. Performativity identity process in steps. Some medical discourses first identifies, declares, and enunciates a body as male. Later discourses of family fashion ensure that this body dresses behaves in fulfillment of this first identity given to it. The body enacts various roles that suit the first identity. The cumulative effect of the many discourse regulated role is the male body. This male body is now deemed to be natural. It has always been male. Thus, a constructed identity, one given by the many discourses, is seen to be natural male. The identity was given to the people by the medical discourses from after born. It declares that their identities and their role of play. Here, as we can see from the above discussion, Butler's works refuses any unitary or natural identity, seeing all identity as the effect of discourse. This line of thought reveals Butler's indebtedness to post-structuralism and deconstructions, which also refuses a monolithic, undefined, and unified identity. Hope you all understood. Thank you.